What's up, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. And today is the first day of the official NFL offseason. The first day where every single team is thinking about the next season. There's no team out there that is thinking about the season we just had because for every team, the season is over. So I thought it'd be fun to take the opportunity to take a look at some of our division rivals here, take a look at how they're doing going into 2024 because we spend a lot of time talking about how the Seahawks are doing, but we don't necessarily spend a ton of time on the rivals. We talk about them when we need to, but there's definitely stuff that gets ignored because it doesn't directly pertain to this team. But I think it's good to check in every now and then and see how the division rivals are doing because they're the teams we're competing against more than any other team. And ultimately, a part of the Seahawks having success or not having success comes down to what these teams do when they're against us, both in games and in the standings. So today I'm going to take a look at our division rivals, starting with the Arizona Cardinals, probably the team in the division that is the least interesting right now in terms of immediate success. I think there's a sense that the Rams, Niners, and Seahawks all can be successful in 2024 because all three of those teams had a winning record in 2023. The Cardinals are the team that is obviously way in the back because they're coming off a 4-win season where, honestly, they were mostly competitive. They had a lot of close losses, including one to the Seahawks. They were competitive in almost every game they played. They hung around constantly. And straight up, I think the first thing that needs to be said when you're talking about these Arizona Cardinals is they might be headed in the right direction more than initially anticipated. And I'm not going to try to commit to anything too over the top when it comes to these Cardinals. I'm not saying they're headed to the playoffs this year. I'm not saying that they've got the right coach. I'm not saying that they're on their way to a Super Bowl run in the next few years. But this is not bad. This is not bad for these Arizona Cardinals at all. And as of right now, looking at it, they've got a lot of work to do, but the indications that they had in 2023, I think, are good because they played hard for their coach and they were consistently in games. This was not a circumstance where they were just getting boat raced, kind of like I was expecting. I didn't think Jonathan Gannon was going to make it as a head coach. I thought he might be a one and done. I thought he might be a Nathaniel Hackett, but I think he did about as good as he could for a team that had very little to work with. He did not have his quarterback for most of the year. By the way, the quarterback he has is not particularly good. He's whatever. He's okay. He's decent. And coming off that major injury, I don't even know if he was his peak self. And his peak self is, okay. So he didn't have that. There wasn't a lot of talent on either side of the ball. There were some injuries as well to the few players they did have. So I'm impressed with Jonathan Gannon, and I think this Cardinals team might be headed down the right track. Now, the question is, what direction are they going to go? Because I got their Spotrac page pulled up here, and the first thing that jumps out to you is that Kyler Murray's about to get to the fat part of his contract. $52 million cap hit in 2024, and there's a massive dead cap hit if you move off of it to where post June 1st is actually only a few million less than the cap hit if you just keep him. And I think this creates an interesting dilemma that I was not anticipating for them this year because I and many others assumed they were just trying to get to the point where they could get off Kyler regardless of how much money it cost. I thought that this was just going to be a throwaway year, 2023, and then in 2024 they'd say, let's just eat the money. Let's just deal with it. Let's just have a couple really bad years. Not much we can do about it. And we will rebuild around a new quarterback going forward. Even though it's going to be super expensive and it's going to be painful. It's the right thing to do because he's just not that good and he had this major injury. And we just don't need to be messing around with it. But then Kyler went in there for the Cardinals last year and actually played fairly well. Not great or anything, but he was better than the guys they had before. And more importantly than even any of this stuff right here, the money part of it, they didn't get a top 3 pick. You go to Tankathon, they're picking at number 4. So realistically, you take a look at this top 3, and I don't know if the Bears might trade out. Some people are saying that, the Broncos might trade up, or the Falcons might trade up, or the Vikings might trade up. There's obviously some stuff that can happen, but however this goes for this draft, I think there's a very good chance that the big 3 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, because there's going to be a need for quarterbacks with the 3 teams that pick there. As of right now, you've got the Bears with Fields, who I don't believe in. You've got the Commanders with Howell, and you've got New England with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. I think those are 3 teams that want to find a new quarterback and might use a top pick. So you've got Drake May, you've got Caleb Williams, you've got Jaden Daniels. Regardless of whether or not you think they deserve to be top 3 picks, I suspect they will be, because that's where the need is. And if teams trade up to get a top 3 pick, like the Falcons, like the Vikings, like the Broncos, they're probably doing it to take a quarterback as well. That's usually how it works. Now, the Cardinals could trade up. They could. Remember, they do have a secondary first-round pick. They have the 27 overall. That helps. But as of right now, they're not positioned to just take one of those top 3 guys. So, assuming that they don't trade up, the best quarterback they can get is probably, it depends on how you feel. Do you like Bo Nix? Do you like J.J. McCarthy? Do you like Michael Penix? Do you like any of those guys at number 4? I don't think very many people would be okay with taking one of those 3 guys at 4. So, with things being as they are, if the Cardinals aren't able to work that trade up, which I think they could if they really wanted to, does it make sense to just ride out Kyler Murray for another year, get the dead cap hit down in 2025, see if he maybe does something really good in 2024, and maybe you actually do have a quarterback after all? Like, it's possible. So that's the fascinating subplot here. How are they going to handle this offseason? Because Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be there at 4, and you're going to be feeling really good about yourself if you get him, because he's generational at the wide receiver position. He's about as good as it gets for college prospect wide receivers. So there's a real possibility here they roll forward with Kyler and just give him a blue chip number 1 wide receiver. And they've got a little bit of a foundation going here, because they do have good investments into the offensive line. DJ Humphries is a good left tackle. They've got Paris Johnson, last year's top pick. They do have a little bit of a foundation there. There's not a lot going on defense, admittedly. So they're going to have to aggressively go after some additional defensive talent if they want to figure this out. Because, by the way, if you go to their free agent list, Budda Baker, now he's got a club option, but he's also coming off an injury. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but Budda Baker is, he's one of the few things they got on that defense that's good. So if they decide to stick it out with Budda Baker, then they're going to owe him a lot of money. But if they decide to let him go, then you're losing one of your guys who actually has upper level potential here. Now, the good news is they don't have a lot else that I think would be a devastating loss on the defense in free agency. The offensive guy they might lose is Hollywood Brown. He might leave. And they would obviously replace him with Marvin Harrison Jr., so I don't think they'd be hurt too bad by that. But the tricky part now is to overcome the talent deficiencies they have on this roster, because this is not a very promising roster. One of their best players is James Conner, who's getting up there. I was surprised James Conner had one more good year in him, but he did. And honestly, I would be very surprised if he had another good year in him. So that's a guy that they've been leaning on for a while now that I don't think they're going to be able to lean on much longer. Zaven Collins really hasn't worked out all that well. He's kind of going the way of the other inside linebacker they drafted in the top 10. The guy they traded to the Giants, name is slipping my mind right now. But that's not really panning out the way they were hoping when they took him in the first round. And Rondell Moore not really going the way they wanted to go. I do like B.J. Ojulari, but there isn't a ton going on this roster that I'm into. So they've got a big talent deficit to make up and not a ton of resources to do it, especially if they decide to invest their 2 first-round picks into a quarterback, which they will probably have to do if they want the quarterback. And the way things have broken, I think it might be a good idea for them to just roll it forward with Kyler for one more year and see where things land. Maybe he ends up playing really well for you, and then you might actually have something going forward. But yeah, Cardinals are in an interesting place here. I think they actually may have done fairly well with their coaching hire, better than I thought. But I think that there's going to be too much of a talent deficiency for them to overcome in one off season. From 2 years ago, one of their best players was Zach Allen. They lost him. A lot of the time, it seems like whenever they have a player that's playing really well, he leaves. Like Zach Allen and J.J. Watt were the two best Cardinals 2 years ago, maybe. One guy retired and one guy went to Denver that offseason. So it's just a drain of talent that you're not doing a lot to replace. And they might lose Budda Baker and Hollywood Brown. That is a drain. That does put you in a situation where even adding a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. is just offsetting your losses. He's not gaining because Marvin Harrison Jr. is great, but I doubt he'll be better than Hollywood Brown as a rookie. There is a learning curve here at the wide receiver position. But yeah, Cardinals, I think they're headed in the right direction, but the path that they're on is going to be a long one. I don't think this is going to be a one-year turnaround thing. I think they are looking at one more year where obviously they hope to improve and maybe win like 6 or 7 games, but I don't see them being a threat to like win 9 or 10 games in 2024 because I'm just not seeing the stuff in place that they need to make that happen. So let me know what you guys think about the Cardinals going forward. Where do you see them this year? Where do you see them the next year? How are they going to play this quarterback thing? How are they going to use their 2 first-round picks? It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but not there yet. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Future videos will take a look at some of our other division rivals.